Alrighty. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum. Salam.
How you doing, sisters?
Hi, alhamdulillah. How are you? Oh, this light.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. And it's been a lot of stuff going on, exciting stuff. So I'm happy about that. What you don't like?
This daggone light. It keep on changing colors. Okay. What you call light?
Oh,
So so today's going to be about children's mental health. Because I think that sometimes people forget that we start out as children, and if you damage children, they become damaged adults.
absolutely.
You know.
Absolutely.
You muted me. Hey.
Or click, 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 click.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. So
Me sorry.
No, so these kids become damaged adults, and then it's like what I find when I was working in the schools is that children treat. I said children treat teachers children like they're not human.
Mm-hmm.
It baffles me, and we tell children. I mean, I know because I grew up on this too. Children should be seen, not heard.
Uh-oh.
That's a famous thing that people say. And I do understand the concept of it. I do get that. But at the same token, how is children supposed to learn, grow, and develop to be able to think, rationally and cognitively and really think things through if you don't talk to them?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that generational cycles, and I don't think that our those generations of old like thought that process through. Growing up, the values were different. It was about respect. So being seen and not heard was an indication of respect, just like yes sir and yes ma'am. And I think maybe the generation after the baby boomers began to change that, where they were allowing the children to say, I know raising my children, I allowed them to say more, and having that dialogue was important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, well, I know one thing. I'm reading something right here, and I always go straight to, Google. Sometimes he my friend, sometimes he not. But I remember from my studies, the Center for Disease Control talked about the emotional and developmental healthy portions of the child. And a lot of times, from what I know and studied, when the environment only knows what they know, they're going to
Yes.
teach what they know.
Yes.
And a lot of times they're doing things wrong. I can even admit I did a whole lot of stuff wrong as, a parent to a young child, which later on I can hear my mother's voice right now saying stuff like, I told you shouldn't have did that because the outcome is going to be this, that, and the third. And now my daughter will tell you in a minute, like, Mom, I'm traumatized. I have anxiety because of this, that, and the third. And I'm like, wow. And I never knew, because of the chain and the hand-me-down in the environment just spilled right over into, even being educated. It was like, okay, the development, as long as they walked on time, as long as they talked on time and they ate the right foods, and even if it wasn't the right food, she eat and leave her alone. Yeah, but she was 70 pounds when she was 6. Now that ain't good. You see what I'm saying? Like 100 pounds at 6, and they were trying to tell me, but I just did the best that I could and what I knew how. But
Absolutely.
the emotional milestones that need to take place within these children is just not happening. And I'm seeing that in my practice all the time. It's just not happening. I met even tonight with a 4-year-old. You know, right? Tonight I met with a 4-year-old right before I left the office. It was my very last client of the day. And it's just like, did you eat? Did you eat right today? Did you eat good? Like, what happened? And all he wants to do is talk about what he is taught in the household to talk about, and do in his therapy session what he is taught. And so one of the hardest things to do is to try to help change their mindsets at that young age so that they can become emotionally healthy and not get to a place. But I just, at 4 years old, you're already in therapy. To me, that's an adult problem. That's not your problem. Like, you don't have the skill to tolerate and cope with what your child is dishing out. So you want to put them on medicine and put them down and have no idea. Oh, don't get me started, please. I'm just saying.
What do y'all think about the gentle parenting?
Gentle.
I'm not really a big fan of anything that does not incorporate structure. I think that structure is important, and I think that sometimes, because my daughter is definitely a gentle parenter, and we see what the outcome of that looks like, especially as they grow older and they are allowed to voice their opinion. Sometimes they don't know. Sometimes they don't know the lines, not those lines that they shouldn't cross, and it goes a little too far. And by the time they're teenagers, listen, those formidable years are really crucial. And one of the things I used to tell my children is, when we're talking, let's look at each other. Let's make eye contact. Because I wanted my babies to understand, one, without me raising my voice or sounding punitive, I'm serious. You know, and I feel like, based on how we came up, again, based on the information we had, this is what we, put into our children. And it's like second nature. It's not like something, it's just like second nature. It's not something that you really formulate in your mind. It just flows the way it is, because again, it's all that you know.
Yeah.
Now, what did you call that again, sis? What was that?
So they call it gentle parenting. Now, my thing is, like, I do agree, like, a little bit about gentle parenting, because the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam definitely did that with his children, grandchildren, and children in the community. He did gentle parenting. However,
he
like,
disciplined those children.
Exactly, I was say, but also he still disciplined them. And I think what people forget when they're doing gentle parenting is that when you love someone, love is also correcting, and correcting never feels good.
Oh, absolutely not. If it don't feel good for the adults, you know good and well what the kids getting ready to do.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, I see it here. No punishment, no reward. Just a partnership with your kids. Oh, my mother couldn't stand when I did that. She could not stand, because she said, you're the mother. And I really didn't know how, though. Honestly, I really did not know how to be the mother and let her. I did it like this. Everything opposite of what the way that I was raised. Everything opposite is what I raised her like. Like, if my mother would, like, give us a smack in the mouth, or don't say this and don't say that, I made sure I did not smack her in the mouth and don't say this and don't say that. You know what I mean? Or if my mother would give us hot dogs and give her boyfriend steak, I made sure that, because that impacts the kids. So I made sure that did not happen, with my kid.
I think too, I know, like, for me, I gave my children a lot of information, and they knew that they were first. And despite marriages and having a husband, like, my children, we, knew that they were first. And I was married to their father for 10 years, but it was important for me to explain everything. And, even now my daughter will say, Mom, you gave us a lot of information and we didn't know what to do with it at that time. I gave them a lot of information because, again, when you have your own trauma, you want to safeguard your children from experiencing some similar trauma, whether it's direct or indirect. So you want to, especially my generation, you want to cover every base. You want to hope that you cover every base, and in trying to cover, in doing so, you promote anxiety. You begin to prompt anxiety because now they are so paranoid in the world,
Mm,
um,
yes.
because they have this information that they can't really process at
Hmm.
such a very young age.
But I
And
did use reward though, sis. I did use a reward system. I remember having that.
so, like with Miss Peace, right? She says that she's always yelling, and when she try to be easy, they don't listen to her. And the advice that I would probably give is not that they wouldn't listen because you're not yelling or yelling. It's about consistency. So a lot of times I find that parents, when they have children that don't listen, it's not so much that they wouldn't listen, is because it's the inconsistent messages. So for example, if you tell your child, like, if you don't eat dinner, you can't have a snack. But some days you give them a snack and some days you don't. When you tell them not to,
Yeah.
they're gonna have that fit, because some
Yeah.
days you do give it to them and some days you don't. It's about, a lot of times it's about the consistently doing the same thing over and over and over again, because then they know not to even ask you, because they already know the answer when that comes around. So
Right. And the
hope
brain
so.
learns by repetitious and reward, period. That's how the brain remembers things, and learns from repetitious and then, a reward type of thing. But when it comes to teaching the appropriate behaviors, which this model is based on, if you don't have it, you ain't gonna do it. Period. If you don't have it, and if you don't have the people in your life that's telling you, well, that feeling is acceptable. I get it. I understand, what in allowing that child to have that voice instead of, like Miss Peace was saying, yelling over and over and over again. I know that you're yelling, but try talking instead of yelling, but talking consistently. Like Michelle just said, like everyone's favorite therapist just said, instead of that, maybe that might help.
But I also think making that connection. If you talking
Mhm.
and a child is looking at the back of your head, there is no connection. It is very important to establish a connection with
Yeah.
children during those formidable years. Not even so much so that they know that you're serious, but so that they understand. Listen, this in this moment, one, I'm gonna validate how you feel, because I remember a time when my children were crying. I'd be like, "Stop that crying." I grew up like that. Stop that crying. When I began to gradually understand that I need to validate how they feel. Okay, you can cry, you just can't cry right here. You need to go to your room and do it.
Mhm.
When you are disciplining them, and I'm talking about on the lines of disciplining them, because my daughter, you ain't have to put your hands on her. All you had to do was raise your voice. Tracy, the story, but validate, one of the things I had to learn to do was validate how they felt. And a lot of times I feel like because they kids, we don't validate how they feel. We dismiss it as, oh, that's just what 5-year-olds do, when you have some very intellectual
Kids.
young people.
Ooh, they smart. Them
And,
little people
and
smart.
I want to add on to that. When you invalidate someone's experience, right, you are creating an adult who, when they feel something, they don't trust it. So then you wonder,
Mm.
like, didn't you, like, because feelings are important too. They're information. So if I can't trust my own feelings, how can I trust my judgments and when I'm making decisions and things like that? It's always important to validate their feelings. Like, oh, I understand how you can feel this way, blah, 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 blah. However, with some other ways that you can do it. And I'm going to give you a good example. One time, my son, when he was getting the COVID vaccine, and he had a really, really bad experience on the first time. So while we were sitting there, his dad was like, it's not going to hurt. He's like, yes, it is. It hurt last time. And the lady said, no, no, remember the last time it didn't hurt. I said, my son told you that it hurt the last time. It hurt.
Okay.
So she
Okay.
was looking at me and I said, because when you do stuff like that, when you tell a child that, no, it really didn't hurt, they start questioning their reality. That's even
Mm-hmm.
worse.
Mm-hmm. But the beautiful thing about that, you was also building trust with your son. Like he knows
Yes.
that my mother believes me. I can tell her anything. And then he has that example to use.
Mm.
Watch this over and over and over again. You
But that's
know.
the connection I'm speaking about.
Mhm.
That connection, here's the other piece. That connection between a son and a mother is, it's not the same as I was reading this thing, and it's the son that stays in your body until you die. Your son's DNA stays in it. The connection with the son is so powerful.
Mhm.
And we talking about from a biological perspective.
Mhm.
So it appears to me that me and my son are always in the same place in our lives. Our lives, our experiences are always parallel, and I'm his mother.
Mhm. Mhm.
We could be in different parts of the world, and we will speak and share an experience, and it's parallel. That's how deep that connection is.
Mhm.
And you will, and you have young babies, and as you get older you will see that. And when I talk to men about the relationships with their mother, I've heard grown men say, listen, my mother was the only one that was there when I was out there, in addiction or whatever they've experienced.
Mhm.
How their moms was that connection. And it's not to say that it's less loving with your daughter, because me and my daughter, we tight. However, the connection was different with my son. And maybe if him being the first child, but I also did some research on the biological connection. You walking around with a part of him in you.
Deep, deep, deep.
Um, yes. So I
Genetics, I'm sorry.
no, I get it. One of the things that I do want to ask Miss Peace though is I think it might be interesting, like how old the kids are, because sometimes we want to change, right? But the kids is like 15, and then it's like, well, you got 15 years of doing something that
Mhm.
you don't want to do anymore, trying to redo all of that over and retrain them basically to the way that you want them. So that's going to take time. But
But
Mhm.
she's conditioned them to respond that way too, Zai.
yeah.
Miss Peace, she's conditioned her children to think that that's the normal way to address a situation. So now they are conditioned where they're not going to do it unless she responds in that manner. So
Mhm.
whenever she started that, she began to condition the children to believe that that is a normal way to,
To
you know what I
respond.
mean, to interact.
To communicate exactly.
Hmm. Hmm.
Hmm. And
And
so with the gentle with this gentle parenting, they give 5 pillars that you can actually practice with the kids. They give 5 pillars to, and you talked about that, Asia, when it came to like bonding, giving them using autonomy as their choice and stuff like that. No using punishment as a way of discipline, but just being gentle. Punishment looks like this: taking away things. And now y'all know that's how we grew up. You ain't getting this, you ain't getting that. Go to bed, clean up this, do that. This, besides the butt whooping. So we don't even want to talk about that part because we was abused. Literally, we really was.
I was going to say that. Yeah, I was going to say that.
We was abused.
yeah,
My mother
but
ain't, my mother had zero tolerance with 6 kids, 2 sets of twins. You gonna get your butt out of here. So I wish this thing gentle parenting was around when we were raising our kids. And it probably was, but nobody taught us.
but Alhamdulillah, Miss Peace. No, I do not have 3 girls. Thank goodness. Oh, sorry,
Boys,
sorry.
yeah.
I got 2 boys, mashallah. But but yeah. So the consistency, being gentle, like the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, but also remember that love still needs to be corrected.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how much I stress when I'm doing family sessions. Consistency, consistency, consistency. Because just think about it, even as an adult, right? When you walk into somebody's house, wouldn't you feel more comfortable if you looked on the wall and it had the rules of their house on the wall? Because you'd be like, all right, I know how I should act in their house. You just know. Because it's just when you know the boundaries and you know the rules, it lessens the anxiety that people have
Yeah.
inside them. And what they think is kids acting out as them just being bad and have a tantrum. Actually, the inconsistency is creating anxiety too. But they
Mm-hmm.
can't express that.
Mm-hmm.
And then it
Right.
becomes the norm, and then
Mm-hmm.
it becomes the behavior, and then it's just like it becomes into their temperament, and that's how they deal with situations.
Ain't that
I want to
something? I remember going to a family member's house. I'm sorry. Go ahead, sis. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, because Zafir, you keep saying how the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, how he did gentle parenting. Let's talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Ooh,
Allah
talk about
subhanahu wa
gentle.
ta'ala will reprove whom he loves. I'm gonna give you an example. Musa alayhi salam. Musa alayhi salam was not allowed to go into the, as they call it, the land of milk and honey. He had to be disciplined. And I'm saying that because it is just the standard. We serve a God of equity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, anything you read is a God of equity. And there are examples in the Quran that when they did not act accordingly, they were dealt with accordingly, and sometimes it was not always gentle. So when when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the supreme being, leaves that minhaj or that pattern for how we need to be as parents, and what we need to be doing for how we set the tone for these children. I don't know, for me that's my pattern. I mean, I follow our beloved Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. I agree with that, but I agree that there needs to be some balance. I agree.
Absolutely, the religion is balance.
You know what I mean? I agree that there definitely needs to be some balance. And I also learned very early with my children, I needed to appeal to their heart. I needed to appeal to what they valued.
Nice.
I had to appeal to what they valued. And in parenting, sometimes you got to barter. You know what I mean? Sometimes you got to barter. And sometimes you have to be able to say to your child, and I've often said this, listen, I'm wrong. I am wrong. However, it does not diminish the respect that you need to be showing me when you express how you feel. And I think when you can talk to your child like that, it doesn't diminish, their experience. And they understand that balance. So I guess you can call that a form of gentle parenting, but just helping children to be able to understand that balance and be able to respect boundaries.
That would definitely come under the fifth pillar in parenting.
But you know what?
In gentle parenting.
You know what I see, and I know you're like, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, do a pruning process with us, and he does this.
I said reprove.
I mean, I'm sorry. Okay. You know what? I got that from the Bible. So they talk about pruning. But anyway, sorry. I think that it was still the same concept though when they talk about pruning there. But even still, I think it's still gentle. Well, not parenting in the sense that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is our parent. Please don't misquote me. But I still think it's gentle because you know why? He don't give us what we deserve. It's what we need.
So let me just be real clear. In my life, in my experience, I feel like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I've read this, and I will go get hadith on this. What we believe he is what we shall receive. And everything that I believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was what I have received in my life that I am living right now, mashallah. And I'm gonna say, I feel that some of the punishment, let's just talk about David, Dawood, some of the things that he did and how he was not allowed, to build a lost city, like it's just so many. And I'm saying that because these are examples of, and even though we're talking about adults, these are examples of fairness. These are examples of accountability and consequence. That's what I mean when I use those examples.
I agree.
You know what I mean? And I think that when children are taught that early on during those formidable years, then they understand that they can't just do whatever it is they like to do. You know what I mean? And think that it's acceptable, because it's not. Because see, here's the thing: as a parent, we love them, so we're going to try to tell them the right way. But the world don't love them. So if they go out there and they think that they don't have to be accountable or conduct themselves accordingly or treat people with respect, it might not go well for them.
But with this particular model, as long as the trust is built and the bond is there according to these pillars, then they will have a chance, because the parent is going to always be like the backbone, backing them in their world's journey as they journey through, through earth, and growing up. As long as that bond is there.
And that mutual respect, even though they are children,
Mm-hmm.
That respect has to be there, and we need to acknowledge sometimes as parents, I am wrong. I
Mm-hmm.
am out of line.
Mm-hmm.
And in the midst of my degradation, when my children were growing up, I let them know, listen, I'm out of line and I'm wrong, and I'm going to try to do better.
Mm-hmm.
And they need to know that we fallible as parents, because I grew up thinking that my parents was giants, like that
Uh-huh.
they did no wrong. I had such a misconception, you know what I
Uh-huh.
mean, about my parents, which negated my feelings, you know what I mean, like, which was even more traumatic, because I can't say that about my mom, and then believe that I still love her. You know what I mean? So I think children need to learn that very early on. Yes, your feelings are valid, and it don't negate if you love her or not. It's how
What was
you
the
feel.
what was the
Yeah.
lady's name earlier who said something? Miss Peace, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
I just read something that said when you think that this model with the gentle parenting doesn't work, how you can continue to, this is profound when I saw this, reparent yourself as
Yes.
a parent, it
Yes.
says.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I'm like, wow, that's something
Absolutely.
huge, because in a million years you couldn't have told me you better rethink the way you do things, or I remember never allowing anybody to tell me how to do anything when it came to my child, even my own mother. And I'm kid you not.
But I think when you begin, and I don't know, my again, this is just my story. When
Mm-hmm.
I began to discover who I was, when I began to reflect on some of my trauma, I knew I didn't want to inflict it on my children. So, which means when you mindful of your stuff, you want
Mm-hmm.
to proceed with caution, because
Mm-hmm.
again, it's kind of some of the stuff that we experience becomes second nature. You
And I
know,
didn't
so
begin to I didn't begin to become mindful of who I was until I did accept Islam in 2007 and began to go off into my recovery process to led me straight to Quran, you
Mm-hmm.
know, to Allah
But
subhanahu wa
but
ta'ala.
I want to add something to what Miss P said. Actually, it's even deeper than the slave master whooping us, because how it became introduced into our households as African Americans is moms would go and say, "No, I'll beat them instead of you, the master beating them," because
Ah, yeah.
we wouldn't be as harsh and cut
Mm-hmm.
open skins and stuff like this. So that was a way at one point in time we protected our
for
children
protection,
from
yeah.
harsh beatings. But what happened is we lost sight of that. It was only temporary. It was only for that, that season of during that slavery time. When we came
Mm-hmm.
out of, we kept those same traditions with beating our children.
No, that's dysfunction, and that's
Uh-huh.
transgenerational transference of trauma. There is nothing, and I don't want people to think that on this podcast traditional about that. That is again, that's historical trauma passed down
It really is
sequentially for
compound like I don't
generations.
know what. Straight.
That's historical trauma, because
Excellent.
and we can take note of the difference where someone of another ethnicity might do a timeout.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They might,
Correct. Correct.
handle it a little different. Where, listen, one of the things I wanted to talk about is like the era of crack. And we got to talk about that, because what it produced in reference to the children,
Mm-hmm.
where Big Mama left. Big Mama didn't exist anymore, so she couldn't hand down the stories,
And the
or
dads too.
or you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
now you have young women, and I see this often, where they be like, "Come on, you little mf'er," or "Stop it crying, you
Oh
little
my
B."
goodness. It
Um,
burns me up.
and they don't even talk to the children like they babies or human. They talk
Mm-hmm.
to them like, you
They're their
know,
peers.
they're the exact, and if not something worse, you know what I
Right.
mean? And how do you change that? How do you address that
Mm-hmm.
when these young mothers don't even want to cancel everything and don't even think there's anything wrong with that?
Yeah. And then get mad. Don't you dare stop them and tell them what they doing. I just be looking at them with my eyes get so big. Like, did you just say that to your daughter?
And don't
She's like
understand why she
4.
acting out, and don't understand why they
She's
acting
like
out.
4. And you
Mhm.
just called her a bitch
Mm.
in the middle of Broad Street. Like, no, you got with all these people. Like, did you just do that to her? Humiliate her like that?
Mhm.
You know? And the dads are absent too. during that crack era. The dads got in the opiate epidemics is
So
missing.
the children are being raised by television. They're
Hmm.
being raised by other, you
Absolutely.
know what I mean? They're being
Social
raised by
media.
mm-hmm,
Social
and
media.
other people that have perpetuated, all sorts of trauma.
Hmm.
Um, so it's just so many variables, and then the product of that, the the next generation becomes the collateral damage of that, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's we don't even realize that sometimes, I one of the best things that my professor ever told said to us when we was before we graduated was, when you see stuff, ask people what happened to you, because a lot of times it's just a compound situation that, like I say, the transference of uh says so
Historical
word.
trauma. It's historical
Historical
trauma.
trauma. Yes, historical trauma and it lives in us. It
Yes.
lives in us. Do
And we
you
become
know?
comfortable.
Do you know that um if when a baby is in a womb, like if you
Mm-hmm.
are arguing and stuff like that constantly, it
Mm-hmm.
changes the baby's
It
DNA
Mm-hmm.
does.
in the womb.
But first, it
Oh my
changes.
goodness, I got such a good story about changing the something in the womb, because I watched you, sister. I watched you when you were pregnant with your son Issa. Oh my goodness, I will never ever ever forget this. You read books in while he was in your stomach from I mean, the moment he was conceiving, you was I'm pregnant. You started getting books. You started saying numbers. You started reading to him. You was doing Quran, like you was doing all of this stuff, and I would be saying, "She doing that again? She reading to her son." And then when he came out, you didn't wait for the teachers and the school and the community to educate your son.
Neither did I.
My baby could read, forget it.
Right.
Forget it. Hands down, he had every chapter, every section, every
Mm-hmm.
one of them up until I don't know how old. And
Actually, it
today,
only lasted till he was 2 because he started
yo,
fully reading better than me
yeah,
and spelling better than me.
you would put me on the phone and like, I remember you reading to his, I came to visit and you had a book. I'm like, but ain't nobody here. Yes, it is. He's right here in my stomach. So that was the first time I've ever experienced anything like that. But I've also seen where the child came out slight autism and stuff like that from experiencing trauma in the womb, in the household, domestic violence, and all that stuff, brain injuries, and all that kind of stuff. I've seen that stuff when babies come out like that based on the environment and getting beat and doing all that stuff, while they were in the womb.
Yeah.
It's
And
true.
Because I want to say this also. The DNA of your great 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 grandmother is in your body right now.
Mm-hmm.
Your great great grandmother, your grandmother, your mother, your DNA is in your daughter and her baby, your
Mm-hmm.
granddaughter.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't understand that mutation of DNA goes from
Mm.
generation to generation to generation.
Yes. Yeah.
So whatever the lesson was, whatever the trauma was, is continuing to change the DNA.
Mm, mm,
mm,
mm, mm,
and
mm.
then it has been proven, that your emotional state literally can turn on, activate genes that were previously turned off.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's high blood pressure or like your emotional state can literally do that. But also, just like your emotional state can make you sick, your emotional wellness can make you well.
Mm-hmm.
And how we do that? Opening up the Quran and Sunnah. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell us to do? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam tell us to do. Love your neighbors. Treat them better. Forgiveness. All of those things. Because in the literature they tell you that meditation starts to heal the body. Yeah, and Allah knew that, and that's why He told us to meditate 5 times a day on His word.
Well, I'm gonna say this. First, you got to be able to identify that you have your personality before you discover spirituality.
Mhm.
And because religion and spirituality is definitely two different things.
Yeah.
Um, and you have to be able to understand that there was you first, with all your sinful tendencies, with all of your conditioning, good, bad, or indifferent.
Mhm.
And one of and so the point I'm trying to make is, in order to be a better, whatever you choose to be, in this case we are Muslims, in order
Mhm.
to be a better Muslim, you have to be able to admit your shortcomings and be okay with that.
Yes.
You have to be able to admit that, and you have to be okay with that, because inshallah, you is going to get better as you grow, as you mature, as you develop, emotional intelligence. It gets better. But I feel like a lot of times, and I see this in the masjid with the mamas and the babies, they want the kid to sit down and they want the baby to be still.
Oh.
And and it's hadiths that support that. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his grandkids, he'd be down in sujood and the kids is crawling all over him. He didn't bend, he kept it moving. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? Because at some point they will learn. You know what I mean? Like, but to force it on them is going to make them repel and walk away from the religion.
And I know a ton of them. I know a ton of them
So,
that frown their face up walking into the masjid.
so
Walking
I
into
did
the
that as a Christian, having to
masjid.
go to the Kingdom Hall, and I ain't like how it smelled first and foremost, and having to be forced to do something that I did not feel in my heart,
Mm-hmm.
uh, made it very challenging. And
Mhm.
one of the things, the reason that I was talking about knowing your personality is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us these personalities for a reason. Now we refine them as we go
Go
along,
along.
but I don't think that we should allow religion or our spiritual journey to prevent us from being our authentic self.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the best of planners. He gave us these personalities, and it's our job to definitely refine them and spirit and feed them good spiritually.
It
But
says
people got to
that
recognize that. Mhm.
It
It's
says that gentle parenting is peaceful and positive approach to parenting. This is different from the traditional authoritarian, old school parenting style. That's what we know. It is parenting mindset that characterized by empathy, respect, and understanding and boundaries. And
and
boundaries.
and I have to
I
say,
didn't know how to do that, and I read that because I did not know how to set a boundary for them. I felt like we was 20 years apart. I treated her like she was my friend.
I set boundaries early, and I would explain to my children, this is your area and this is mine. And like, if I needed time to get my mind right, I would tell them, listen, I need some adult time. And I would say that to my children. Mommy needs some adult time, because if I'm not right, the household will not be right. And
Mm-hmm.
I think, we got to get away from, mothers have to get away from trying to paint this superwoman warrior.
Oh,
I'm this uh powerful, never get tired or sad, super black woman.
yeah.
We need to have that conversation with them also, so that they know it is okay to be vulnerable. It is okay to be tired. It is okay to say no and not feel guilty because you done said no. All
Yes.
of that starts very early,
Mm-hmm.
during them formidable years. And black women, we just plow through it like it's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And
mhm.
I saw my mother plow through it like it was nothing. And I began to realize as an adult, and I used to say it like this: my mother was too strong. And I realized that she wasn't too strong, that was just a trauma response,
Mm.
what she had experienced in her life.
See,
And
Wow.
yeah, I want you to
hmm,
I want you to respond to this.
what?
I'll just put it up on the screen. Can you see it?
Oh,
Jehovah's Witness tried to get Goofy. Oh,
and people will
walking up.
slam doors in Jehovah's Witnesses' faces. I'm trying to go towards the Lord, not go toward jail. And
People
I'm
still.
not really sure what this person is saying in reference to setting her up, but this is what I will tell you about being a Jehovah's Witness. Being a Jehovah's Witness, you will have a college degree in theology by the time if you handling your business and doing your studies. Being a Jehovah's Witness prepared me for a loss of Panawata Island. So in the Quran, it confirms in the second surah how some of Christians in some instances make better Muslims. It is because they know detailed information
Yes.
from the Old Testament about where the Quran might talk about Joseph or might talk about Musa alayhi salam. The Old Testament goes deep into detail about, like, most people don't even know that the prophet is in the scriptures. Most people don't even know he was the comforter they spoke about. So I will not knock Jehovah's Witnesses at all. That was my path that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala carved out for me so that I could meet him.
And I feel the same way about Christianity. Had I not had that first, Islam wouldn't be, because Islam is easy. It's nothing difficult about being, Allah makes it easy for us, But I feel like if I had not known Jesus or what he stood for and the miracles that took place and things like that, then it probably would have been difficult if I would not have had that experience at first.
I agree with you, and I want to also say this to the young lady as well. Jehovah's Witnesses are considered the only true Christians. When I took Shahada in that office with Doc B, the brother, my wali, said, listen, if you decide you don't want to revert, you still good, because we believe in monotheism.
That's exactly what
and I'm
he
talking
said.
about at that time. But I knew that Quran, listen, it was a beautiful thing. Then I had to do what I had to do.
Well, we knew this was next level for us. We knew. We knew without a shadow.
So I don't want to knock anybody's lifestyle or way of life, because again, Allah, I'm Hiram. He knows who ain't going to go in the hellfire. I don't. So I'm not going to talk about anybody else's. I'm just talking about my experience as a Jehovah's Witness.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. My husband always say, if you don't love Jesus, something wrong with you. He always say, that's your brother. You don't understand that? Like, what's wrong with you? He always tell people that, but I don't want to get off topic. So, but that was good. That was good.
No, but I think it's important to answer people's, questions and stuff like that, because it all ties in together.
Yeah.
Because our spiritual journey, because I think too, sometimes people come in when they on the outside and they look at Islam, they look at it as a religion. It's just a set of rules. Do this.
Whole way of life, right?
Then you go to heaven, and it's really not. It's actually a spiritual journey, and a lot of the things that you are supposed to do and you cut out it's more spiritual than anything too. Even eating halal, putting stuff into your body.
And here's the other piece.
Important.
I agree with you too, Zai. And here's the other piece about that is when I was talking about going into detail, I learned as a Jehovah's Witness not to mess with pork. I learned that you know what I mean? Most Christians there are Christians that actually eat pork. But I learned as a Jehovah's Witness in the book of Leviticus, where it goes into detail how you should not eat an animal that has a hoof. So, again, you don't know, subhanAllah wa ta'ala, you don't know the journey that he might, lead you, the road he might lead you down to get to where you need to be, inshallah. So all I'm going to say is, because I want to get back to the children and the parenting, you know what I mean? The young children and the mental health. All I can say is, whatever you're teaching them, don't be compulsive. Whatever you decide you are going to entertain in your household, you don't want to be compulsive so that it is not pleasing, to the child. Because sometimes you could force it on them so hard and heavy that they go the opposite way and go out there and get addicted to drugs or get into prostitution because not only with the religion, because it's hypocritical. So you compulsive with the religion with these children, but then they're experiencing trauma. So it's this inner conflict.
Yes,
And
and see, it's
now,
a partnership. It's a partnership between you and your child, and an internal willingness must be there between the two of you, so that the bond and the connectedness, like you were saying at the beginning, Asia, would take place, so that the relationship can grow strong, and that child can believe in you and understand, and will not turn out with bipolar disorder 2 or schizophrenia and doing all those things that
even if they
it's
do,
going to need medicine. Well, yeah, even if they
even if they
do,
do, you know what's so
you,
beautiful about that is because my children are the most anxious people I know. But even if they do, you know what I say to my babies and they adults, I'm here now. Whatever I was deficient in back then, may
mm-hmm.
Allah forgive me, may you forgive me. I'm here now because guess what? It's never too late. You know what I'm saying? As long, by law's permission, it's never too late to reinvent, to reframe. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
To
it's not,
unlearn. It's
but
never
with
too
this
late.
model, this model is set up so that it can prevent
Yeah,
mental health problems with children. They just telling you, if you parent this way gently, it's a strong possibility that your children won't suffer from these high levels of stress and emotional decay and this, that, and the third, where they will have all of these mental health issues in the past. They wonder why they running around, because and then they say ADHD and give them medicine, but they don't know the part that they played in that child becoming exactly that. So this model is set up so that they can prevent, all
I
of
get
the
that. I get that.
serious
I
things.
get that.
I like the model, actually. I'm so glad that I learned about it tonight. More about it tonight. I heard it before, I never used it. Never. Not one time.
I
Yeah.
never heard this. I'm sorry. Go ahead. What's that?
No, you never heard the term. Go ahead. Go, my
I
sister.
never heard it until yesterday. Until was it yesterday? Day before yesterday? Whatever day we was together. That's when I heard it. But I will say this: I met your children. I met your children,
Oh yeah.
and they are the most beautiful boys I have
Discipline.
ever met outside of my
Mhm.
own son, of course.
Discipline.
But
Yeah.
they are very well behaved. And the other thing is their energy. Their energy is so calming. Their energy is just so loving.
I know that.
Um,
Oh gosh, I could
you
take
know
that
what I mean?
home.
So I definitely believe that gentle parenting is definitely a good model.
Mhm.
I guess some of my concern is peer pressure because we don't talk about that. You know, there are factors that come into it. So you raise your son or your children a certain way with the using that particular model, and let's just say they go to their father's house. Let's just say it's a situation because I mean, sometimes mothers and fathers parent different. I know mine did. I know my at that time my husband, he was a little more strict, a little more hard, on the kids. Where I might, because I remember my at that time he's my husband. I remember him saying, "Just because you're Jehovah's Witness, don't mean they have to be Jehovah's Witness." I remember
Mhm.
I'm the primary parent, and you're telling them that, and things like that will make a child rebel. Well, my dad said, you know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah.
You know
Mm.
what I mean? And that prompts some unnecessary
Yeah.
foolishness, because they gonna ride out with what their dad say.
But you know what I did to combat a lot of that stuff, because my oldest son there, he's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. You know it. You know him. I got to say his name.
Ooh.
You know him. He's literally cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. I know he has some mental health problems. So what I used to do is I had conversations with him. Like, hey, what's going on? Did you have fun? I never really like dug where it's like, tell me what happened, But I allow him to slowly like tell me the things that was going on.
Absolutely,
And
Mhm.
then what I did was I made concessions for his dad. I like, sometimes people are, letting him know that your father is not perfect. I'm not perfect. We all are in this healing process. Give him grace. And I think that when he understood, like, my dad is really human and going through stuff, he learned to not take everything personal. Not saying that it's always perfect, because sometimes I could see it on his face. But he also learned to have boundaries with his dad, where he'd be like, this weekend I can't go. It was a lot for me last weekend. And I'd be like, listen, last week it was really a lot for him, with your yelling and screaming, and he needs a break. and he'd
Oh,
be like,
yeah.
I'm his father. And I'd be like, I hear you. See you next weekend. He needs a break.
Right.
I'm not saying that he's not don't love you. I'm not saying that you can never see him. He just needs a break because you're a ball of toxic and you're refusing to do what you need to do to rectify the situation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I just always had that open dialogue, open dialogue. And even when I hear him say something about like maybe sex or whatever, I'll ask him like, "Hey, do you want to know more?" And he'll be like, "No, not really." I told my friends like, so I make sure I stay on top of them by, "Hey, what happened in school? How was it? Blah blah blah. What did y'all talk about?" And I leave that conversation open to talk about anything, as long as
Mm-hmm.
it's respectful.
And you know what my daughter said as an adult? She said recently we were talking about her father, and she was saying, I never was aware of this. She said, Mom, you never said anything negative about our dad. Like I mean, I
Awesome.
was I was not aware that I didn't. I just never did because at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day, they were my children,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm gonna do what I have to do. And I remember saying to him, because these new mothers are prone, they do this all the time. If you never gave me another dime, I don't care. Spend time with your children. I wasn't worrying about him
Mm-hmm.
financing time with his kids. I didn't care about that because I was holding it down anyway. I've always
Right.
been that one. So just spend, and it's not. And some men will use it as the finances as a weapon. Fine. So let's take that off the table.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need the money. Just come and spend some time with your children.
Nice. That's
Mm-hmm.
good. So before we go, because I know we down to the last 10 minutes. Just so you know, I was completely opposite of you. I talk mad trash about my baby father to her. I can almost say up to date, but Allah has done some things that changed, and Ramadan just passed, so I was on my best behavior. Because he just got remarried. He probably looking right now, but he just got remarried, and I'm happy for the both of them. But it wasn't a pretty situation. I'm sorry, sis, it just wasn't.
Mine
But
wasn't either.
right, but real quick, there are some gentle parenting books that's out for the audience. There, one of them is called The Gentle Guide
And
for Parents. The other
Hadith.
one is called huh?
I says called Quran and Hadiths.
And Command and Hadith. Well, yeah, that also. And then there's some other ones that's out here on. I mean, if you want to stick to that,
Supplementary.
you can.
No, no, wait. Supplementary books.
Yes, 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 yes. Okay, you can say that. But if you want to stick to Conan and Hadith, because this your show, not mine. I'm just giving a couple of, because everybody don't go there first, you
And,
know.
and
No,
I
because
agree
you know
with you,
what?
sister. I agree with you.
No, because I do understand it, and the reason why I say it is because I think that people should use secular stuff to understand better.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do understand sometimes stuff in Islam when it comes to mental health and like understanding emotional stuff is not always clear. Because when I first started going down this journey of looking in the Quran, looking in the Sunnah to try to really figure out like emotional well-being, physical well-being, it was really difficult. It was really
Mm.
difficult for me. A lot of the things you have to infer, when you're reading it and be like, oh, and see, and notice the examples, but you have to have a background in psychology to really realize what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Or I think that if you just praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for discernment, like a lot of lessons that I learned to begin to really work on me, because I didn't want to be like my father. I had to keep praying for discernment, and that gave me clarity on whatever it was, I was reading. Like, if you are not really versed in the Quran, it could be very difficult. It could be really challenging. And I am learning that when you don't read it in Arabic, it takes away from the true meaning.
Awesome.
So I think because the law has allowed this other material, supplemental reading, because the law subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed it to be created, that's where people need to start. I encourage that.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and and here's the thing, and again, as because it's a process, and then as they go on, then they will begin to incorporate the lessons through khutbah. Like for me, listening to a khutbah, and then that made me go look for the information to do further research.
Yeah.
So I think that you know,
I
however
agree.
Allah opens the door, however Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens the door, or whatever path he create, I
Mm-hmm.
think while you want it, you pray for discernment, and
Mhm.
he will guide you. Allah guides whom he wills, and he stops, guiding whom he
But
don't.
there are a couple of these are Islamic books, parenting books actually. But so I don't know. I have not opened them to see what's inside, if they give hadith, if they give Quran verses, like if they give that stuff. But there are 7 of them, so I just wanted to put them out there.
Somebody said we got to take this sister is saying how Sister Peace. She was this Muslima saying how we gotta. She was talking about her sobriety, and she's saying we gotta take it easy on the children as well as the new Muslim. Let me say you something, sister. You gotta take it easy on yourself, because sometimes when we new in the game, whether it's a new way of
Mhm.
life or whether it is a new person in recovery, we are very critical of
Mhm.
ourselves, and we do not celebrate those moments that require that we should celebrate. I never celebrated clean time, and I have multiple years clean. Never did I ever any point highlight it. And you got to take the time to celebrate yourself. You got to take the time to allow yourself some grace.
True facts. True facts.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
True
That,
facts.
nothing true has been spoken. But for people who may not have the funds, you can go on this thing called PDF drive.com, and it's a lot of books on there that are free and
Mm-hmm.
you can download them. Not everyone, but a
Mhm.
lot of them are on there that you can go and download the books for free as a PDF.
Mhm.
So if that,
But you know the beautiful part about
It's a
this
really good topic.
I was gonna say the beautiful part about this way of life is you can go in the store now, the Islamic stores, and get books for children, and they write the story so simplistic.
Oh
You know what
yeah.
I mean? Like the kid is going to get the lesson because the story is so simplistic.
Hmm.
The kid is going to get it and will understand it. And like I said, my biggest thing was I appealed to the hearts of my children. I went straight for the heart. And how did that make you? Because I want to know how it made you feel after you done said those inappropriate
Uh-huh.
words. You
Mhm.
know, and if it's a child that's a little sensitive, they're gonna be like, "It made me feel bad." So what do you think you should do? I think I should say I'm sorry. So I mean, it's again, even with children, it's a little coaching process.
Yeah. Yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
Good topic. I loved it, this topic.
Yes. So, give your children their rights, teach them, be kind to them, give them kisses, but also love them, which is always
Mhm.
sometimes. I think people always think love is, you feel good and warm and fuzzy. Don't
And
go
when
there.
you
Don't go there, cat. This
Yeah,
cat.
I seen the cat
when you
tail. He was like about to
and
hit
when
you.
you're talking to your children, make eye contact so that they feel seen and heard. That's so
Yes.
important. Build,
Yes.
And touch them.
yeah, and build that connection.
And
Build that
allow them their voice. Let them have their voice. Hear
and
them out.
validate their experience.
Yeah. I
Yes.
believe when you hug, don't quote me on the time, but I think it's 20 seconds. If you hug somebody for 20 seconds, it builds trust. So hug your kids.
Mm-hmm.
Hug them. Tell them you love them.
Yeah.
I'm quite sure my kids tired of hearing it.
Yeah. No, they
Yeah.
not.
But
If you don't say it, then Easter gonna be like, "Are you all right? Are you all right?"
no, that's Eli. Issa be like, he'll just look. Eli be the one like, Mom, you okay? And oh wait, and I'm glad you just said that because, and that's another thing, sometimes we hide our emotions from our kids.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do it, but don't rely on them to fix it either. It's that fine balance where you show,
Ooh, I've been there.
hey, I cry too, I hurt too, but I'm gonna be okay. I'm gonna get through it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes even
I agree.
age appropriately, you'll tell them like, hey, I might fix it with X, Y, and Z, or I'm gonna make do eyes for us Allah, or I'm gonna build this resume. And say, you just age appropriately, obviously, but let them know that you experience emotionals too, and that they don't
Yep.
stay.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Because
I
we
And they
mean,
go. Temporary feelings are temporary. They
every
go.
single one they
Every
go.
last one of them. They ain't gonna
Mhm.
last. They say this too shall pass in the Christian world.
Yeah. So
They said
next
wonderful topic. It has given me more content. Okay, good. Oh, good,
Bye.
Sister Rashia. That's good.
Like,
Niece.
Mhm.
no,
Nice.
get away from me. You're gonna bite me.
Oh,
Cats gonna bite me. But no, but I understand that they said with cats, when you pet them, sometimes um it activates their animal instinct to want to like play, but they get too rough. So yeah.
mm-hmm.
But okay, thank you, mom. So yeah, show your emotions and let them know that emotions are not temporary. Um, and honestly, with children, I can go on and on and on. This is just like the surface level where you can start. Inshallah, it may be something in the future where we go a little bit even more deeper into
Mm-hmm.
different things that you can do. But right now, it's like we gotta start with the bare basics, inshallah.
What's the next topic?
Actually, I'm going to have Karen come next week because she's better at the mind, body, brain, and all how that works because she has her master's degree in public health and counseling. So
Nice.
to help people understand the body, spirit, and mind connection when it comes to how emotions and stuff like that and trauma impacts you.
Wonderful.
It's funny because I was just talking to my brother the other day, and I was like, people don't understand alignment. Just
Oh.
what you just said. They don't understand alignment. If
Mm-hmm.
the mouth is saying something and it don't match what the body is feeling or your thought, listen, or where you at spiritually, oh yes,
It really will.
it's a
It's a
mess.
Off.
lot. Mhm.
Off.
It really is a lot, and it has to line up. Even when real quick, I have a client where I make them write letters to, and I still love that one that you told me about writing letters to like grief and fear and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
I make them like write a letter to their parent, not necessarily that they got to give it to their parent, but they just have to write it, and then we talk about the strengths and stuff that they went through to basically keep it all together. But she has been working on this paper for about 2 months now. And she's really struggling with it, and she's really struggling because she's trying to downplay her feelings about her experience with her dad, and the dishonesty with that is really messing her up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I
Yeah.
just let folk when I do it, I have them write I have them write to the emotion, whether it is fear, whether it is love, gratitude, enchantment, because it is the emotions that are insurmountable to most people. It's
Yeah.
not it's what the emotions represent. It's not the people that prompted the emotion. A lot of times is what the emotions represent. Like you and I was talking about betrayal. Like
Yeah.
it's what it represents, not even the people. Just if you remove the people, so it may be easier, and just since we
Yeah.
colleagues and we
Yeah.
confer,
No, yeah,
it
I think
might
I
be easier to ask her to write an emotion to fear or whatever that thing she struck fear or I don't know
I think her
betrayal
biggest
or
yeah, I think her biggest fear was fear because growing up her parents were immigrants and they were undocumented. So it was always that don't say nothing about us because we might get deported. That fear of that they would lose their parents because she was born here. So it was always that
I went
fear.
to a seminar and I'm telling you the woman that wrote Eat Pray Love, she did that. It was 300 women. Everybody was crying. We was sobbing like babies in there. That was the best workshop I had ever been to address trauma.
Yeah.
And emotions can be really overwhelming, and when people build it up in their mind that they can't get beyond it,
Hmm.
they can't address the trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So
But
Alhamdulillah.
sisters,
Yes, I know
alhamdulillah.
about to go too. And it was really great always
uh
you.
yeah, because I have not been feeling all great today, so I'm gonna go, and until next time, inshallah. Assalamu
Inshallah.
alaikum warahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa
Ow.
rahmatullahi wa
Sound
barakatuh.
like him. That thing kicked me right out.
Wa alaikum salam wa
All
rahmatullahi wa
right.
barakatuh.
Sound like him.
I will see you ladies. Well,
Did,
whenever I see you, obviously it's gonna
did
be
did
recorded.
Doc just drop off
I'm right
without the
here.
greeting?
I'm right here.
No.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Can you
We
hear
can't now. We can't see
her?
you.
Oh, yeah. It dropped me off. I'm like, okay, it's 10 o'clock. We get it.
Mashallah.
Sound
Wa alaikum salam.